Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer and feminist perspective, examining all the Freudian themes of this TV show with two lovely boys you'd love to bring home to smother. Mother! My name is Joel, and your name is...
My name is Disgusted.
I don't tell Brian what I'm going to say before I start talking at the top of the podcast.
You really don't. Brian, my name is Brian. Hi, okay. How's it going?
And this week we're going to be talking about episode 4?
Episode 4 of season 2.
Yep, Inca Mummy Girl, which is the one with the Inca Mummy Girl.
It is indeed.
So who wrote and who directed this episode, Brian?
Okay, cool. So...
Disgusting.
Yeah. So it was written by Joss Whedon, Matt Keane, and Joe Rankmeyer. The two of them also wrote the pack, and they were also the story editors for season 1. So
this feels a lot like the pack. I can see the pack's DNA.
Yeah. In fact, were they a little obsessed with cultural appropriation and stuff?
Yeah. Anyway. Dangerous monsters from the deep dark, jungles of etc. Yeah.
For sure. They don't write anything else for the show. Well, Joss Whedon does. But it was directed by Ellen S. Pressman, who also directed The Puppet Show, and it was first aired on October 6th, 1997.
Very cool.
Yeah.
When do we actually get into the 2000s? It's really towards the end of the show.
The 2000s is it finishes in 2003. So doing maths, I would say that 2000 is season 5.
Season 5, yeah.
Yes, and if you look at season 4 as heralding the new millennium, that makes a lot of sense in terms of the structure of the actual season and the themes of the season. It being the most techie season of the show. For certain.
So what will be on TV around this time?
Okay, so you have The West Wing, premiered in 1998, I want to say. You have 6 Feet Under, premieres in 1999. You have, obviously, The X-Files is a huge one that's around at this time. Sopranos is starting to air soon. Sex and the City. Oof, I don't know what else.
Good era for television, really.
It is the beginning of the golden era of television, in my opinion. So if you look at things like Northern Exposure, that's also a great early example of great staple structured TV. Or The Golden Girls is obviously around the same time, very funny, good stuff. Mary Tyler Moore is probably the first example of a great ongoing TV show, in my opinion. But yeah, Buffy and The X-Files and Sopranos and 6 Feet Under and all, they are the beginning of TV as... the first time you hear TV being discussed as potentially rivaling film. I don't really agree with that kind of thing. I think that Buffy is amazing because it's using the television format rather than trying to be a TV episode, TV or movie every week, the way that Game of Thrones kind of does.
Well, see, I don't. What I don't like about that is I don't like any comparative where you're pitting two things against each other, because I think it diminishes both of their impact. I think TV is a fantastic genre and format in of itself. Film has its own qualities. And I've said this before about how science fiction shouldn't be compared to quote-unquote actual fiction, etc. But also with things like, which is the better female superhero film? Is it Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel? It's let them stand on their own merits, So I don't think that's an accurate thing to be doing comparing TV and film.
Captain Marvel is
better, that's true. But we get more of these things by giving them, it creates the sense that there can be only one,
Yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of like whenever gays get at each other, or queer people kind of get at each other for having more privilege or more spotlight within, because obviously a lot of queer people would see gay men as having straight gay men, white gay men as having the spotlight in terms of media and in the LGBT movement, which is true for sure. But also, you shouldn't be saying fewer gay men on TV or in movies and stuff. You should be saying more of everyone else and fewer straight people.
Yeah, it's this false economy that I think we're put into as minorities, that there's only going to be a limited amount of places on the plane, basically, and white gay men are taking up a lot of those. And really, the solution is not fewer white gay men; it's to have more representation across the board.
Yeah,
and really is not to compare the struggle of the queer community to the struggle of television versus film, but it's a way of keeping us policing ourselves. We're infighting over who gets on the helicopter out of Saigon, as opposed to being well, who started this war anyway? My metaphor's gotten away from me. But
we were never at war with the Straits. So, speaking of films, we went to see Us a couple of weeks ago.
We did.
It was so fucking good. Jordan Peele's Us. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times in this podcast about how excited I was to see it, and it didn't disappoint. Fucking loved it.
Yeah, despite what Hildegard Ryan says.
My friend Hildegard Ryan, love her to death, but she can go fuck herself.
She's incorrect about this.
Yeah, no, she's a lovely person. I'm sorry, Hildy. Please don't die or anything. She just hated Us. She thought it was just bad.
Yeah, but what do we think? We thought Us was very good.
Yeah, so I thought it was great. I think it specifically is great in the way that it doesn't work on a surface level. It's presenting a reasonably in-depth and not in-depth, just like incomplete is what I mean to say there, structure as a plot. You know, the kind of the half notions that there's an intention behind all of this and there's actually something going on when there really isn't, which means that you have to look at the metaphorical. It's kind of, it reminds me of good Stanley Kubrick adaptations, which is appropriate because The Shining is a massive influence in the movie.
That's a very good point, actually, because a lot of horror films that you won't seek to interpret, you know, there's the surface, like there's a complete package of this is what the casual viewer can see, but then there's a lot more under the surface. But no, I'm reiterating, you're 100% right there, that Us only works if you look at both halves of it together, the textual and the metaphorical, yeah.
Which makes it a quite like alienating text, because some viewers and some readers are always going to take a text at its surface level. And that's a totally legitimate approach to take. But when a text demands you to approach it from a surface and a metaphorical level, it can be alienating. It's in the same way that like that movie was probably quite alienating for people who wanted to specifically read it on a metaphorical level, because the metaphorical level is also reasonably incomplete in the sense that like there's a large amount of layered metaphors. It's race, it's class, it's about memory and imposter syndrome, and
also just like genre references are
genre,
a big part
absolutely,
of it.
yeah.
And how that creates connection between childhood and adulthood, these kind of repeating images, you know. But and that's a great example as well of another text where people were like, "Oh, it's very, very good, so therefore it's not a horror film." Except, you know, this like, you know, honestly, go fuck yourself. But like, elevated horror.
Actually, the person who was tweeting about it was Hildy, my friend Hildegard Ryan, who she was tweeting about like she quote retweeted the article being like, "Should we have a new term for movies like Hereditary and Us, like elevated horror?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, fuck that."
And people have said that it's a thriller and all this kind of stuff. And when people say elevated horror, what they mean is, well, horror by definition isn't good, but this is horror I thought was good, so it has to be something else. And Jordan Peele very specifically has said, no, this is clearly a horror film. Like, so it's more of the same, basically.
Absolutely. And I really like horror is an excellent genre. It's the genre that has the most fun of it with itself and experiences, I think, the most thrilling highs of any genre.
Probably one of the more malleable of genres as well. Like horror films can be very, very different to each other, but still being recognized to be horror. And you can't always say that with some other genres.
Agreed, yeah. What I was going to say about Us was that... Oh yeah, one of the things that Hildy was complaining about was the shot where you can see both Adelaide and Red, and I'll say that because I don't think that gives away spoilers, but Adelaide and Red, you can see them both in shot. Mm-hmm. And they're both in focus, even though they're quite a distance from each other. One of them's an extreme close-up and the other one's in the background.
You told me this before, forced perspective or something?
It's not actually called forced perspective. There's another phrase for it, but essentially that's actually a reference to the guy who directed Carrie. Brian De Palma. He used that technique extensively, and it's what happens there is that you're not actually they might have combined two images in that instance because they're the same actress, but what they used to do back in the day was they'd have your camera lens and you'd put another layer of glass in front of one of the sections of the lens to create a different focal plane for it.
Oh, very interesting.
So your shot is actually focused actively on two different, very separated things, which is mental.
It's a physical process.
Yeah, but Brian De Palma, the movie it specifically references apparently is a movie about a woman and her evil doppelganger.
I believe it was called The Parent Trap.
Oh, it was called The Parent Trap, yeah, starring Amanda Bynes, yeah.
I fully am exactly the kind of person who will either think a person has a twin when they don't, or vice versa would think that.
I did think that Lindsay Lohan was a twin when I was younger because of that, yeah.
So on the back of that, we're very excited to see the remake of Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
Which we're actually going to see later today.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it's
supposed to be good.
Yeah, well, if you've seen the original, which I very recently have, which is surprising because it's a very hokey, very 1980s horror film with a lot of genre actors from that period, Stephen King, and I've never seen it until recently, and of course I was in love with it because
there's a really weird drag queen in it. Yeah,
there's just so much stuff that you always get this with any Stephen King text. It's like, are you doing okay, Stephen King? And like, he's not.
He's on so much cocaine.
There's so many questionable things in it, but yeah, I'm interested to see how they kind of adapt it for modern audiences, because I think we're very much in a golden age of, you know, people. It's very easy to lament the reboot and the remake, but sometimes they can be building blocks for new things, like the new Twilight Zone from Jordan Peele, the new It, Hannibal, you know. So I have no problem with that. I think we're in a golden age for people having the freedom to say, let's see if there's something interesting we can do with it. So hopefully Pet Sematary will be it's always good when someone can take the fever dreams that Stephen King has and kind of pare it down to something that's actually usable.
Yeah, like what are the great Stephen King adaptations? Obviously the most recent It being one of them. I think we walked out of that and we were like, that was an amazing adventure movie.
It's a good film. And it's actually, I think it's quite a faithful adaptation of the text as well, while excising again some of the more
disturbing,
weightier parts. Let's say.
Obviously, The Shining. The Shining is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Shining, like not a great necessary adaptation of the text, but a very good film. Misery
is wonderful. Yeah, Dolores Claiborne is quite good. I quite like Dolores Claiborne as a movie.
Shawshank Redemption.
Stand by Me,
definitely. Very
Stand by Me is stunning, and Shawshank Redemption is stunning. The short story that Stand by Me is based on is quite good, and the short story that Shawshank Redemption is based on is quite bad.
Oh really? You
haven't read those, which is weird. See, I think it's probably the only Stephen King text that I've read that you haven't.
Yeah.
Carrie, amazing.
Carrie's great film.
Yeah, I fucking love Carrie. Did you see the Chloe Moretz remake?
I didn't. No.
Not good.
Color me red.
Shocked, yeah.
In terms of high school dances,
bring this all the way back.
Slingshotting us around the sun. Brian, I can see you have your summary open there, ready to go. So I
don't want to still do that.
Yeah, we're doing cold opens now, so I don't want to delay you any longer. What is this episode about?
Okay, an unexpected male exchange student turns out to be female. Actually, a mummified human sacrifice on a show at the museum has risen and is buying herself life and beauty by sucking people dry. She falls for Xander and cannot bring herself to kill him. Buffy, who feels empathy for her plight as a chosen sacrifice, destroys her. That is not a good summary.
Not accurate.
I mean, you don't want to say the phrase sucking them dry without giving some context.
Yeah.
But also, the phrasing of that is so deeply confusing. This book is otherwise good. This is very confusing. Anyway.
Also the fact that she says that
Buffy destroys
her and she doesn't.
No, she doesn't. She just... Well, she kind of like... No, she doesn't
No,
at
she
all.
doesn't. She kind
of just resists.
It's more poignant that she doesn't. But anyways, you basically have... It's all foreign exchange... cultural stereotypes, broad strokes at Sunnydale High, and they go to an exhibition where there's an Inca Mummy Girl who was sacrificed 500 years ago to prevent demons coming from her town, etc. And lo and behold, this mummy comes to life and starts sucking life out of Sunnydalians. But she turns out to be, she pretends to be Buffy's exchange student. She turns out to be quite affable. Xander falls for her. She actually likes him for some reason. And then there's a whole tragic thing where this bodyguard is trying to put her back in a box, and she's like, no, I want to live, but also, etc. And parallels. So it was a surprisingly, it had more to it than I remembered, to be honest. Definitely the parallels between this girl as a 16-year-old who was told she was the chosen one, she had to die to protect her people, and not being able to have a normal life, and both textually and metaphorically, all the parallels of Buffy feeling the same. It was actually quite a strong, and I think it was again, like with Witch in season 1, like in a couple of other things they've done, it's like you can do these things. You can do the prom queen with Cordelia without denigrating women necessarily, and without making it so flat as to use them as props. Like it was a way to do this. Again, a woman who has had some agency taken away from her but isn't herself without strength, and I think it actually portrayed that quite well.
I totally agree. The background of this episode is actually quite interesting. So it's actually influenced by a mummy who was found in 1995 by a man hiking in Peru. And his Peruvian guide or friend, I'm not sure. It was listed in Time magazine in 1997 as one of the top 10 discoveries ever made, basically. Essentially, though, what it was she's a Mumia Juanita, which means mummy Juanita. She is an Inca mummy who was killed as an offering in around the 15th century. I always find it really fascinating that
the Incas are so close to modern day.
Yeah, the Incas are so close to modern day, exactly. So a lot of Central American and South American ancient culture is actually quite recent, which is so cool. But she was found in Mount Ampata, so there we go. Same
name as that she takes in this episode.
Yeah. And she was estimated to be between 12 and 15 years old.
Oh.
Yeah, she was probably royalty on the basis of the clothes she was wearing. She actually was wearing like everything she was, because she was in such a cold area, and she was found in a volcano, so it's hard to say what actually happened there. She definitely was sacrificed, but she may have been noble, but like everything about her was perfectly preserved. So this, like the contents of her stomach, they could tell that she'd eaten vegetables within 6 to 8 hours of having been killed.
Sacrificed, yeah.
And it seemed that she was killed by blunt force trauma, essentially, to the head. Yeah, it's kind of quite tragic, and I can see how that would inspire good writing of an episode. Unfortunately, it didn't happen here, so.
I think it's interesting because, like, you take two different writers and they could take this and just make it King Tutankhamun and some bastardization of kind of Egyptian culture or something like that, and kind of do just like, a monster and the beast from the deepest, darkest parts of the world kind of thing. And while there is some definitely racial simplification and cultural simplification here, I think it was an interesting an interesting approach to take with it, because as Buffy says at the end, she's not evil, she's not a monster. She's she's, for want of a nail, is very similar to what happened to Buffy.
Absolutely. And this episode, I think, is one of the reasons that Buffy does quite well, with their Monster of the Week episodes. They do quite a good job of it, but also they're quite good at making their internal echoes quite obvious. Like if you're an average like reader / viewer watching this episode, you're identifying those themes for Buffy, and they do that a lot. They have these callbacks and these echoes of what's happening for the characters within the episodes, and it's not just like you can read this and you can read way too into this and talk about the ego and the id and shit.
Yeah.
It also makes it quite textual, which I think is the sign of good writing.
Yeah, but like even in this episode, Joyce comments on how Ampata, who's the Inca Mummy Girl, or the name she takes, is fitting in so well, and it's like she's a normal girl and all that, and Buffy's like, yeah, must be nice, it's very much, and again, the great thing about Buffy Summers is that she's not jealous of her. She might be a bit envious, but she's not bitter about it. She's not like, and I think someone could write that differently, where she resents her, but she just always and as Ampata says at one point that she reminds her of herself, in the sense that she thinks of others first. Yeah. And I think at this early in the mythology, before we meet Kendra or Faith or anything like that, I'd say there could be a Usenet forum from the time that posts that we would question whether or not Ampata was a Slayer at some point in the past, because she's very much presented. There's not any time she's explicitly stated to not be a Slayer, just that she was the chosen one who was 16, who was sacrificed to stop the netherworld rising in her village.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a Slayer to me.
Yeah. Interestingly, apparently the word Ampata potentially comes from ampara, which is Spanish for to defend. So there you go, cool. Another layer to the kind of defender image, which is funny because that's not her name. Her name is more likely to be, I had it a minute ago, Sincapara, I think.
Sabanyaka.
Sabanyaka?
They do mention the
Mountains.
Gog Sabanyaka and the Sabanyaka Mountains a couple of times in the episode. So
that's probably more closely related to her as a name.
She does talk a lot about an ancient, powerful magic seal, which is like a plate, a dinner plate shaped thing that protects her corpse. But just consistently, I kept imagining a seal as in like I was going to do that, and then I decided not to. I was going to say dogs of the ocean, but yeah, basically the arf arf.
You know that the word seal is actually a contraction of the word seal line.
I don't believe you.
No, it's not true.
What are sea lions? They're different, right?
Sea lions are... Okay, no, they're slightly different animals. Sea lions are brown, bark loudly, walk on land using their large flippers, and have visible ear flaps. Seals have smaller flippers, wriggle on their bellies on land, and lack visible ear flaps. Of course, no. Sea lions and seals are completely different things. I can of course absolutely imagine them. So seals have like the really roundy facey.
Seals can't stand up either, right?
No, they can't. And sea lions are like... Yeah, they're the ones going arp, arp, arp.
Yeah,
I've seen sea lions actually before. I was in San Francisco, and they were all in the bay. I think they're great.
Very cool. I think are there sea lions in the zoo, in Dublin Zoo?
I think there are. Yeah.
But there was no actual seals in this.
Unfortunately, it would have been a better episode.
Yeah. In terms of and let's just get right into it, Brian.
Go for it.
In terms of the cultural appropriation in this episode,
it's rampant.
It is rampant. It is, and to a certain extent, it's difficult because they do try to portray it as a
cultural appreciation.
A cultural appreciation, but they don't make any. They do portray the characters as being culturally ignorant themselves. As in, you got high schoolers. This is an American thing of let's all have a world cafe and all dress as different, sanitized versions of, which actually is something that I always think of here, because Fáilte Ireland often has these ads where it's like attractive women wearing Viking helmets and like, come to the land of the Vikings. And it's like Vikings were not nice people and they should not be used to promote. But anyway,
they're also not that related to Ireland.
No, true. But yes, it tries to portray it to a certain degree like that. But even within that, there's some very broad simplifications about Inca culture and about people from that part of the world, to the extent, and just like the most egregious thing I noted to you is like literally after Giles meets her, he hangs her the seal and he says, "Can you translate this for me? It's from your part of the world, South America." Not what country are you from. I don't think they ever really established what country even the exchange student that she imitates is meant to be from. But putting aside the fact that the plurality of languages is also 500 years old, it's just
It's mad stuff.
It's not great. And then just a lot of ways, there's a joke in the episode about Willow dressing up as an Eskimo, which is not an appropriate term for
Eskimo. Okay, no, I was actually looking this up. Eskimo is fine apparently, because
I think we've talked about this before. That
I think we probably have. Inuit is obviously consistently seen as a more culturally appropriate term, but it actually only refers to one of the tribes.
One of the tribes, I presume so. Yeah,
in Alaska. So the Inuit people are absolutely a people, but Eskimo is actually seen as a more acceptable broad term for the indigenous cultures of Alaska and Canada.
I'll buy it. I'll take that if that's the prevailing advice.
I think essentially, people like indigenous Canadian and Alaskan people would generally say that Eskimo is better because it's not just it'd be like calling Irish people Dubliners. It's not
accurate,
yeah. But so Eskimo I think is probably better if there are some people who are from have indigenous roots in America or Canada who are listening would like to tell us what is the appropriate term. I would love to know. I did look it up and this is what I got. Yeah,
I think we can say definitively that referring to anyone south of Florida as being from South America and just all of that culture being the same and everyone knowing how to sacrifice people on the top of ziggurats is probably, I think we can say with confidence, is fairly offensive. Yeah,
it's not good. No, it's not good.
No, it's not great.
They also in their cultural night have a Eiffel Tower made of cheese, which I was like, you know what, that's actually pretty appropriate culturally.
They also, I don't think this is intentional in any way, but they also have a band playing called Dingoes Ate My Baby, which is also an offensive thing people say to Australian people, or a very stereotypical thing people say.
Well, that's Oz's band. It's consistently the name of the band throughout.
Yeah, and apparently I read that they did mention the band off screen in the first episode in Welcome to the Hellmouth, but I just think it's just a coincidence that there's a stereotypical thing, in this as well. But as you mentioned, we have the introduction.
No, she was actually cleared from that after a while.
Yes.
Yeah,
I did hear that. But as you mentioned, we have the introduction of Oz, who is a love interest for Willow and a recurring member and eventual Scooby.
And he is Seth Green. Seth Green, who is obviously a reasonably big thing, really, in the world of acting and whatnot.
He's in Austin Powers.
Absolutely. He was in
Tucker.
Mass Effect. Huh?
Mass Effect?
Yeah.
Do you mean Mass Effect?
Joker.
He is Joker in Mass Effect. You're right. I completely forgot about that.
He's just a generally visible actor. He was in Tucker. Yeah, you're right. As
Seth Green. Yeah. I think he's in a lot of I don't know if he's in Eurotrip, but I feel like he's in a lot of those kind of
he wasn't
turn of the century road trip movie kind of things. Yeah.
Importantly, he was also in My Stepmom Was an Alien, which is an Alison Hannigan movie that I saw that was from the early 90s. I saw it when I was maybe 13 or 14. It was on a Tuesday at 7 o'clock kind of thing on RTE2. Yeah. But it's about Alison Hannigan, whose mom is an alien, and she goes on a date with Seth Green in it.
Oh, the mom does?
No, Alison Hannigan does.
Very cool.
And also, apparently Seth Green was, did you look this up? Seth Green apparently was in the Buffy movie in an uncredited appearance.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
We should really rewatch that.
That's definitely a special episode. We're going to rewatch the original Buffy movie.
Let's do that between seasons 3 and 4.
Okay, cool.
Great.
I meant to mention just back last time we talked about the Buffy movie, obviously Luke Perry died, who was the main character in the Buffy movie.
Yeah, poor Luke. I think he had a brain hemorrhage or an aneurysm. He was quite young. He was not just quite young. He was 55 or something. Mm-hmm. The thing I'll always remember Luke Perry from is The Simpsons.
What was he in The Simpsons?
He is in the episode where Krusty is trying to come back with his new show, and
they did a Live Aid thing or something, did they?
Yeah, it's where Krusty sings "Send in the clowns."
Yeah,
and Barbara Streisand is in it. No, it's not Barbara Streisand. It's Bette Midler. Bette Midler's in it.
Bette Midler's eyes.
Yeah, and Luke Perry's there because he's Krusty's half brother or something.
Yes,
and he gets fired into a wall to crush his beautiful face.
Yeah. But so basically to summarize what we're talking about there, Seth Green within this episode.
Yeah.
Oz, who is basically Willow's only significant relationship before she meets Tara and really before she comes out, and is always a big factor in the question of there probably isn't a great textual answer, nor does there need to be, but whether Willow is gay or bisexual or some other variation of queer, because she definitely does have I think it's textual that she definitely has a significant romantic interest in Xander. She's a genuine emotional romantic interest in Oz, and how that plays into her own, I suppose, journey around her sexuality, is not, nor does it need to be, but it's never explicitly said, but she does very much identify as gay in later episodes.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like, if we're being like hyper realistic about it, homosexual people like very consistently have relationships before they come out, you know?
Oh, yeah, no, 100%, yeah.
Where they're absolutely committed to it and they're absolutely involved in it. Yeah, so I mean, like, I don't, yeah, it's a weird
I just
one.
think it's interesting because she's our viewpoint or our flagship queer character in the show. And even in this episode, Xander makes another joke to Aunt Pasha at one point about, you know, if you're going to kiss anyone, don't kiss Willow, kiss me, as in the kiss of death, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much that is lampshade hanging. The interesting thing about Oz and kind of how he's characterized here is he is a counterpoint to Xander, who kind of doesn't appreciate Willow because she is, you know, not stereotypically or conventionally, beautiful, you know, a valley girl, a beautiful kind of thing. And that's actually specifically her genuine personality and individuality is what Oz is kind of is very much portrayed as. It's like, who's that beautiful girl? And his bandmate Devin is like, oh, her, she's the sexy foreign exchange student. And he's like, no, the other girl in the Eskimo costume.
In fairness, Willow looks so bloody cute in that Eskimo costume.
Yeah.
She looks so ridiculous. I think she turns up in that Eskimo costume in Restless. I might be going crazy there, though, to be honest.
Could be. But yeah, Oz is a great character. I'm pretty certain I know this, but I presume you're a big fan of Oz.
I am.
I like Oz a lot. You know,
I really like Oz. He consistently is... He gives great delivery of lines, you know, because like he says everything so dryly.
And like people have tried to do...
funny.
He is very funny. People try to do that kind of deadpan Freaks and Geeks thing and done it very badly.
Freaks and Geeks?
Yeah.
No, that Freaks and Geeks isn't deadpan.
No, I'm not saying that everyone in Freaks and Geeks is deadpan. I'm saying a character like that who could be in it, like the way your man who's really famous now. He's kind of
Seth
gross.
Rogen?
No,
James Franco.
James Franco.
Yeah.
He sometimes delivers things in Freaks and Geeks that are kind of very kind of droll or stonery kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
So people have tried to do that character, but Oz actually does it with some life and some personality to it. You know.
Yeah, sure does.
So yeah, he's a great character, and he's one of a couple of characters like Angel who gets written out eventually. It's like, oh, that's a real shame. That's a loss for the show. You know.
I'd agree with you. I think he does kind of outlive his storyline, though.
Yes.
I think his return in season 5 is probably a bit much. I'm not sure if I'm pro it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. He like I think it's good that he gets written out in terms of where it leads to for Willow. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I do miss him afterwards.
Yeah. Again, we have another Xander-centric episode. We haven't had a great Willow-centric episode yet.
Why?
And first time he kisses someone on screen, and again, him just...
What about Mrs. French?
I don't think they kiss.
Miss French.
She like drugs him and he falls asleep.
Oh, okay.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Again, kind of trying to push this narrative of Buffy being like, oh, you saved my life and you resuscitated me, and Xander constantly trying to like be a chastity belt for Buffy, being like, you're not like near any men who might mate with you. It's this whole thing. But yeah, we have, you know, we're meant to see Xander as like a genuinely kind of funny and interesting character that Ampaga falls for.
Yeah, he's quite funny in the Twinkie scene where Xander is showing Ampaga how to eat.
Yeah.
By shoving a big Twinkie into your mouth.
Oh, this is another thing. Anyone who isn't from America, they think are, you know, subhuman in their intelligence, essentially. But like, of course, it does lead us to like a great scene where Cordelia is, you know, has this Norwegian, Swedish foreign exchange student who she thinks just doesn't understand a word, as in like he is like can't comprehend language. And then at the end, because she's constantly like, me wanty fruity drinky, you know, do you speak American? And then at the end he's talking to someone else being like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with her, she just talks to me like she doesn't even speak English. Is she from here?
Oh, Sven.
Yeah, he's she's just a
treasure,
a solid performer.
She's a
on
treasure.
These episodes.
I love her so much.
She's
charisma by name, charisma by nature.
She's the definition of someone who takes, you know, if she was on Drag Race, and sidebar, I would love if she was on Drag Race
as a judge.
As a judge, yeah.
Maybe she could be in the same episode as Laura Dern, and then my little gay heart would die.
But she's the kind of person, she's the kind of character who you say, look, work with the couple of lines you have and steal the show, and people will remember you. It's very good.
Totally agree.
But yeah, so in terms of, do you believe the love story?
No.
Between Xander and Ampaga? No.
No, she was nice.
She was nice. She was genuinely nice. Yeah. And we never learn her name. We never learn her name. Yeah. No. Which I think is kind of poignant. Yeah.
It is kind of poignant. I'd agree with you.
We also noted that she's a mystical bodyguard, which is not the first time that a mystical person of color has manifested in Buffy to defend the Shumash tribe, the Native Americans.
In what?
Okay, there's two other times I can think of, or maybe that's the same episode, but the Thanksgiving episode. It is the Shumash tribe. It's it might be the same episode as it is. Xander gets syphilis because they break through between the Native American tomb, and they're very kind of like, I can't even describe it without being stereotypical myself, but they're very stereotypical. But it's the same thing that this Guardian manifests. He is wearing period clothing with a big old ceremonial knife, chasing down the princess, etc. But he is Billy Black, who is the patriarch of the werewolf clan in Twilight films, amongst other things.
No, he's also in the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I believe he's the father of Jenna from 30 Rock. Yeah,
the whitest woman ever to be on television.
Yeah, he's also in something else I found. Oh, he was in Wind River, which was a reasonably good movie from 2017 about, again, indigenous people in North America, which is cool. And he was he's in 2 episodes of Veronica Mars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember which character he was, though, to be honest. So this episode also, no vampires.
No vampires at all.
Yeah, which is much more consistent than I remembered. But it's also the first appearance of Devon, who's a reasonably big character throughout, and it's the first appearance of Jonathan.
So Devon being Oz's lead singer, leading man, yeah. And Jonathan being kind of a nebbish high schooler who escapes death by a hair's breadth a number of times throughout the show, is eventually has a really disturbing school shooter thing he does.
Nearly.
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. Like, it's portrayed as a school shooting thing, but he's actually trying to kill himself.
Yeah, exactly.
With a high-powered rifle? Like, with a sniper rifle?
They make a joke about it at the time. But, they actually had to pull that episode because there was, of course, a shooting right before it aired. It might have been...
Columbine?
No, it wasn't Columbine. That makes no sense. Columbine was 2001, wasn't it?
I feel like it was 1999.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
It could be Columbine.
Bowling for Columbine might have been 2001. That's me guessing, but I feel
that is probably correct.
I feel like I have a whisper of something that Columbine wasn't.
Yeah, sure, but they had to pull it because it was like basically the same time. I think there was a couple of episodes of TV that got pulled that week. But Jonathan, he has his own episode at one point, Superstar.
He does, where he's essentially the Slayer, or the
hero.
And
it changes the credits and everything, which is great. He's one of the trio.
That's great. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, he's one of the trio who are the big bads of season 6. Yeah, along with Andrew and Warren. And he eventually gets sacrificed. Did you know that Danny Strong, who is his actor, do you know this? No. He auditioned originally, he read for the part of Xander.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he would have been better.
He wouldn't have played the same character, but he would have been a more enjoyable version of that character.
I think it would have been a bit too much if it was him, Willow, and Buffy. Buffy would just be like...
I quite like Jonathan, and he is the guy who eventually gives Buffy her class protector umbrella.
Yeah, which is so sweet.
Which is very sweet.
It's such a sweet moment.
Yeah, he's a strong character.
He's a strong character. Apparently, they just called him in whenever they needed a good victim face because he gave good victim face.
Yeah. It's quite funny as well because there's a bit where like she's starting to transform back into a mummy and rubbing his head. He's like, "Oh, your hands are so rough."
Yeah, I can see why they call him back after this.
Yeah.
The other person, Devon, he's in this quite a bit. I think he last shows up.
I don't remember Devon.
Oh, he's in it constantly. Yeah. Any Dingo's My Baby episode, basically, he's in. He eventually collects collects Oz's stuff off Willow after Oz disappears in season 4. But yeah, no, that actor, as well as Danny Strong, ended up being a big writer. Danny Strong now writes for Empire, I think.
All right.
I think that's his show. I'll look it up in a second. Devon, whose actor's name is Jason Hall, he wrote American Sniper.
Oh, very cool.
Which is the Bradley Cooper movie. Yeah, so Danny Strong, yes, he is the co-creator and executive producer and writer for Empire, which is a huge TV show at the moment, which I've never even slightly seen. And he wrote 2 of the Hunger Games movies. And, of course, most importantly, he was in Gilmore Girls. I always forget about that.
Devon was?
Yeah, he was Doyle. No, sorry, Danny Strong.
He was in Gilmore Girls, yeah.
Yeah, he's Paris's...
Agatha and boyfriend.
And eventual husband?
Yeah, probably.
But I think he came back for the reunion and everything.
Yeah. That's another show that's coming back soon.
Gilmore Girls?
Veronica Mars, sorry. I'm so sorry, Brian.
Okay.
I got confused and I started thinking about Veronica Mars while you're talking about Gilmore Girls.
Oh, God, Joel, you got my little heart up. Yeah, no, Veronica Mars is coming. You know what? I'd prefer Veronica Mars coming back to
because Gilmore Girls is finished,
and Veronica Mars has so much life left in it.
Yeah,
Gilmore Girls finished had its final four words.
Yeah,
in Year in the Life. I really liked Year in the Life.
Yeah, we can't spoil that though. But what confused me is Veronica Mars also takes place in has a journalism room in it, the same way that they do in Gilmore Girls.
They sure do. It's only briefly though, unfortunately. I quite liked the journalism aspect of Veronica Mars, and it disappears quite quickly into it. So one of the things I read online was a suggestion that the relationship between Empata and her guardian was supposed to reflect the relationship between Giles and Buffy in this episode. So Empata being essentially a slayer that goes off books or goes rogue. Yeah. And that being a through line with Giles and Buffy's resistance of him in this episode, which I can kind of buy a little bit. I think the Empata Guardian isn't so much helping her and trying to give her guidance as he is trying to stop her from existing, which is a very different thing to anyway, I'm not sure what his role is, but that's an interesting idea.
He does say, she says something like, don't kill me, and he's like, you're already dead, you have to go back. So I think there is less of it's not a vindictive thing, but it's more putting things right is his role, and that if she's alive, that she might not be protecting the netherworld or whatever.
Yeah, sure. So that's pretty interesting, but it's also we have to acknowledge that this theme of young girls sacrificing and all that is obviously reflected again in Kendra later on in the season, another very impoverished character, not monetarily though I think that might be the case, but culturally and life-wise she doesn't get to have any life for herself. And this season is all about Buffy and the sacrifices that she has to make to become an adult and to be the Slayer.
Yeah, because I feel like this is the third time in the last few episodes where there's a dance or something on, and she's like, I don't want Slane to interrupt this. And what I thought was a nice counterpoint is this time she actually says, okay, I will cancel the dance, because the last couple of times she's like, I have to go to this thing.
Yeah.
Yet another dance that takes place in the Bronze, the only venue.
Weird. Yeah.
Why didn't they go to the fish tank? The other bar in town we learned about recently.
Did we?
It's where the vampire girl in the last episode, Sheila, yeah, she went rogue and she went to a biker bar called the Fish Tank.
Mad bit.
That's definitely an interesting parallel, and I think it really, Buffy really, it doesn't just drop this concept of the Slayer and what is this 16-year-old girl has to sacrifice as a woman and kind of move on from it. It really sticks with guns on and kind of reinforces it. Really reinforces it at every point, I think. Yeah, I suppose kind of the last thing that I was kind of good about the episode for me and surprising for me is the finale is very much that, despite what your summary claims, Buffy doesn't kill Empata. She starts to make a move to kill Xander, but she essentially lets herself die and fade back away to a mummy because she can't do it, and she's not willing to sacrifice that part of her humanity just to have another chance at life. It was actually reasonably poignant, and it was a very sympathetic portrayal of a monster in Buffy. Probably one of the most sympathetic portrayals I think throughout the course of the show of a monster of the week character.
Absolutely, given that she managed to kill 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, and still remains sympathetic. Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to our ending? So, fashion notes. What do you have?
Some terrible fashion in this episode.
Truly terrible.
There was, I feel like Willow wore all her bag outfits at once in this episode. She had rainbow suspenders, as the Americans would say, and
a fluffy blue hat.
The kind of hat that women wore in 90s TV shows when they're trying to hide a bad haircut. She had a shirt that was made up of concentric bubble circles or something, and her hair was just a single straight line all the way down past her chin. It was like someone had hit randomize on The Sims. It was not good.
At the same time, her Eskimo outfit might be my favorite costume of the season. So
it looks like a coat you bought me, to be honest, if I had the hood down.
Yeah, it does.
So it was very good. Xander arrives to the Cultures of the World event dressed as the man with no name from Good, the Bad and the Ugly, which is a special kind of terrible.
The movies.
No, him dressing like that to go to a cultural thing.
And he says he's from Leone, which is a reference to Sergio Leone, who did the music for those movies.
And not a country. And otherwise I thought actually Empata was generally dressed very chic.
It's very pretty.
Yeah, I quite like where she kind of took the guy she killed's clothes and kind of made a tasteful kind of kind of buttoned it up and kind of did something interesting with it. She's very beautiful and very well dressed and very just effervescent actress. And then otherwise I think just a log of
Oz is wearing a goatee, which I think he ditches quite quickly, which is good because I don't like it. And he's also wearing a very blue workman's shirt, which really doesn't suit him.
That wasn't good. Devin was just wearing some pleather waistcoat, frontman gear. John, I think, was wearing an ill-fitting cowboy suit that made him look like a child dressed up for a fancy dress party.
There's a Mommy Dearest reference in the episode, and I really like that.
There was, yeah.
Buffy says at one point, we have to go find Mummy Dearest, which is cute.
Yes, and then otherwise, in terms of kind of recurring tropes, we had a poor concussed watcher gets knocked out again and trapped inside a mummy's tomb. And as you said, the death count was reasonably high, so there was another one of our broadly drawn caricatures of a bad kid in the opening scene, Rodney Munson, who is introduced just so Willow can identify his mummified corpse by his braces. He's drained by the Inca Mummy, the real Ampata Gutierrez. There is the quote-unquote bodyguard, and obviously the mummy herself, who again, the wiki claims shattered to pieces after being thrown by Buffy Summers, but that's not how she died.
I don't think so either.
I will stand over that. I think she was dead by that point anyway.
I'd agree,
yeah. So that's us. So, Brian, what was your rating for this episode?
I kind of feel like I've done it the last couple of times. Okay. Would you like a chance to go first?
I'll punt it up.
Grant.
I would say 7.2 zebra striped vans.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, very good. Do you want to explain your rating?
As in, what's a zebra striped van?
No.
Apparently that's what Dingoes Ate My Baby travel in.
No, I mean, in terms of why you're giving it that.
I thought it was a good Monster of the Week episode. I thought it had some... I think really on the strength of the fact that Willow was very good in it. I liked her characterization, and I liked that she's kind of coming out of her shell a little bit now, out of Xander's shadow. And just the guest star playing the Inca Mummy Girl was really, really great. I thought for the role she had, she brought a lot of life to it, and I had fun. I enjoyed watching it.
Getcha. I'm going to give it 6.2 Inca orthodontists out of 10.
Very good.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy this episode a huge amount. I thought the strengths of it were definitely the connections with Buffy's own story and what's going on with her. But no, ultimately, I didn't think it was a strong episode. I thought that the midsection was really bloated, and I thought the ending was quite bloated too, and kind of lacking in a conclusion of any sort, because the conclusion was Xander saying, "No, take me," and no one gives a shit, Xander. Yeah. So fuck off. So yeah, 6.2.
Take my wife, please. Cool, okay, that's close enough. Okay.
Yeah. It's a Saturday, so we don't get to have Chinese. It's so unfair.
I know, we're recording episodes 2 days in a row, so it's middle of the day. I'm not drunk. I was having a haircut earlier today. I was probably about 11:30. I had the haircut, and someone offered me a beer, and I was like, "No, this is a trap. I'm not meant to drink this early."
No, day drinking is the worst. You just sober up later, and you feel awful.
Yeah, and you feel like you're kind of waking up during like some kind of like procedure or something.
Yeah, agreed. It's awful.
And so next week we're going to be watching and reviewing Reptile Boy, which is the
Frat Boy episode.
Xander joins the swim team, right? Oh no, it's a Frat Boy.
Oh, I thought it was Frat Boy episode.
No, you're right. It is Frat Boy. Yeah.
Unfortunately, because the Xander episode is much more... No, this one's going to be pretty good fun too.
Xander's weirdly attractive in the one where he's on the swim team. It's confusing to me.
It is, yeah. This one is the one where Cordelia has a lot to do in it, so it's going to be a Cordelia episode.
There is, and there's kind of, themes of kind of like really date rape and fraternities and all this kind of stuff,
Absolutely.
So it's going to be interesting.
And fraternities would occur quite a lot in Buffy.
Yeah, and perhaps legitimately so for the fears that Buffy is trying to write against,
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Thanks very much for listening. Tell your friends, tell your pastor, and follow us on Twitter. And that's all I have to say. What can you say, Brian?
I don't know.
Something positive. You're always a gloomy Gus.
Am I?
You're like, oh, that was terrible, and everything's terrible, and it's a living. Yeah.
Our cat Booker's here.
Booker is here.
He was gone for a couple of weeks there in my parents' house, and now he's back, and I'm so happy.
Say hi, Booker.
Meow. He's actually just lying on the couch, twitching slightly.
Yeah, he's dreaming about vampires.
Probably. I had a dream the other night about samurais.
Is that because you're playing a samurai video game constantly?
Yeah, but the dream also had a dinosaur, and basically me and my people were split into two groups in two different high towers, and our group was being stalked by like a huge dinosaur that could transform, and the other group was being stalked by samurai. And I had to defeat both, and I woke up terrified. But I think it was mainly because it was a home invasion kind of thing. Do you ever think about how nightmares aren't really in themselves scary? What's scary about them is the fear reaction that your body's trying to create. And
that, I think, is a great place to leave it. We'll pick up that thread of talking about nightmares next time.
Okay, this is a bit of Nightmare. See you next week. Yes.
See you, Buffy Boys.
Bye.
Buffy Boys.
See ya.